What if I told you that on the night America burned, in the greatest and most forgotten disaster of its history, a force beyond our understanding drew a line on the ground and said to the fire, "You shall not pass"? This is not a metaphor. It is not a legend. It is the chronicle of an event that defies reason. Imagine a firestorm, a tornado of flames moving at 100 miles per hour, with temperatures hot enough to melt metal. An inferno that incinerated an area half the size of Switzerland, wiping entire towns off the map and killing more than 2,000 people. And yet, in the very heart of that furnace, a small wooden chapel, a school, and 100 people kneeling in prayer remained untouched. Not even a blade of grass inside their refuge was burned. This is the true story of the only Marian miracle officially approved on American soil. A story of faith, terror, and a divine promise kept in the most spectacular way. And it all began 12 years earlier with the encounter between a nearly blind girl and a lady clothed in light. To understand the miracle, we must first understand the desert where it was born. Mid-19th century, Wisconsin. An ocean of virgin forests, a wild frontier that promised land but offered only hardship. Here came Europe's cast-offs, Belgian, German, and Irish immigrants, fleeing misery only to find another kind of struggle. Life was a brutal cycle of planting and harvest, of freezing winters and near-total isolation. In this world, faith was a luxury, a faded memory from the old continent. Priests were itinerant missionaries who might pass by once or twice a year. There were no Catholic schools, no churches within reach. Entire generations were growing up without knowing the catechism, without even learning how to make the sign of the cross. The faith of their fathers was eroding, devoured by the fight for survival. In this spiritual desert lived Adele Brise, a 28-year-old Belgian immigrant, humble, poor, and scarred by an accident in childhood that had left her nearly blind in one eye. As a child in Belgium, she had made a promise to become a missionary nun. But her family's poverty forced her to follow them to America, and her dream seemed forever buried under the Wisconsin mud. She could neither read nor write, but she possessed two treasures: a simple, tenacious faith and a visceral love for the rosary, which she prayed constantly as she worked. One October day in 1859, something shattered the monotony of her life. As she walked home, she saw an indescribable figure standing between two trees. A lady dressed in white, brighter than snow, with a golden sash and a crown of sparkling stars above her blonde hair. She was surrounded by a light so intense that Adele, frightened and overwhelmed, fell to her knees. The vision vanished without a word. It happened again days later. The third time, Adele, accompanied by two friends and strengthened by confession, returned to the spot. The lady was there once more. With a courage she didn't know she had, Adele asked, "In God's name, who are you and what do you want of me?" The lady's voice, Adele later said, was like music, sweet but authoritative. "I am the Queen of Heaven who prays for the conversion of sinners, and I wish you to do the same. Gather the children of this wild country and teach them what they must know for salvation." Adele, trembling, felt the full weight of her inadequacy. "But how could I teach, dear lady? I know nothing. I am so ignorant." The Virgin's answer was a promise that would echo through the centuries. Teach them their catechism, how to make the sign of the cross, and how to receive the sacraments. That is what I wish you to do. Go and fear nothing. I will help you. That promise, "I will help you," became the engine of Adele's life. She took the request literally. Abandoning every personal plan, she began her mission. It was not a romantic walk of faith. She went house to house, offering to work in the fields in exchange for the chance to teach children. She walked unimaginable distances, sometimes up to 50 miles, through wolf-infested forests, spring mud, and winter snowstorms. At first, many thought her insane, a visionary, a fanatic. But her sincerity and gentle perseverance began to soften hardened hearts. The children loved her. Soon, other young women, inspired by her example, joined her. They formed a small community of Franciscan tertiaries, an improvised convent in the middle of nowhere. With her father's help and the donations of a few faithful settlers, they built a small wooden chapel and a school, right on the very spot of the apparition. That sanctuary became an oasis, a beacon of hope. For 12 years, Adele kept her promise to Mary. And 12 years later, Mary would keep her promise to Adele, on a night when hell itself seemed unleashed upon the earth. October 8th, 1871. A date almost erased from memory, overshadowed by the Great Chicago Fire that broke out on the exact same night. But what happened in Wisconsin was an event of biblical proportions. It hadn't rained in months. The entire region was a giant powder keg. That night, hurricane-force winds swept across the dry forests. Fires, already smoldering in scattered places, exploded. This was no ordinary blaze. It was a firestorm, a terrifying phenomenon in which the heat grows so intense that it creates its own weather system, with cyclonic winds sucking oxygen and feeding the flames. The sound was not the crackle of a bonfire, but the deafening roar of 1,000,000 freight trains. A wall of flames, 200 feet high, raced through the forest, leaping rivers and devouring everything in its path. People said they saw the very air catch fire. The town of Peshtigo was erased in less than an hour. Those who threw themselves into the river to escape boiled alive or suffocated for lack of oxygen. It was the deadliest fire in U.S. history, a holocaust of flame. As this inferno advanced, the villagers near the sanctuary saw the monster approaching. Terrified, with nowhere to flee, they ran to the only sacred place they knew, Adele's chapel. Men, women, and children, with fear etched on their faces, crowded into the small, consecrated grounds. Adele, with a supernatural calm, welcomed them. Together with the other sisters, she took the statue of Mary from the altar and carried it outside. They began a procession around the 5-acre sanctuary grounds, praying the rosary aloud to drown out the roar of the fire. The flames arrived. They completely surrounded the property. The air was scorching. They could see the homes and farms of their neighbors explode like matchsticks. But they continued to pray on their knees all through the night, while the world around them was annihilated. They formed a shield of prayer against an ocean of fire. At dawn, the roar ceased, replaced by an eerie silence, the silence of death. When the people rose, they could not believe their eyes. Everything, as far as the eye could see, was a black desert of smoking ash. Ancient trees reduced to toothpicks of charcoal. Even the soil was burned. But the sanctuary grounds were an island of life in a sea of death. The grass was green, the trees were intact. The wooden chapel, the school, the fence enclosing the property, all perfectly preserved. The wooden fence was scorched on the outside, but unharmed within. The fire had reached the boundary of the sacred ground and stopped, as if it had struck an invisible wall. The people and animals who had taken refuge there were all safe. The Queen of Heaven had kept her promise. News of the inexplicable spread like wildfire, this time a fire of hope. In the days and weeks that followed, as the dead were counted and the devastation measured, the sanctuary became a place of pilgrimage, not only for believers. Survivors who had lost everything came to see with their own eyes the place everyone spoke of. Journalists from Chicago and Milwaukee arrived, along with scientists and professional skeptics, looking for a logical explanation. A strange wind current, unusual soil moisture. They found nothing. The destruction was total and uniform. except there. These were the first pilgrims of wonder. They didn't come to pray, but to understand. They stood at the blackened boundary, looking at the green grass on the other side, shaking their heads in silence. The holy ground preached not with words, but with its very existence. That visible, tangible miracle became the most powerful of sermons. Many, seeing it, began to believe. For nearly 150 years, devotion continued, passed down from generation to generation. Finally, on December 8, 2010, after 2 years of rigorous theological and historical investigation, Bishop David Ricken of Green Bay officially declared the apparitions of Our Lady to Adele Brise worthy of belief. Today, the site is the National Shrine of Our Lady of Champion. And here the story stops being history and becomes a message for us. Think about it. In a time of upheaval, Mary did not appear to reveal cosmic secrets or give dates for the end of the world. She entrusted an illiterate girl with the most humble and essential task of all: teach the children their faith. Today, another kind of fire is devastating our Western world. Not a fire of flames, but of ideas. It is the silent, cold fire of secularization, indifference, relativism, the claim that there is no truth. It does not burn houses, but souls. It does not kill bodies, but extinguishes hope in hearts. This fire enters our homes through screens. It tells us God is irrelevant, that prayer is a waste of time, that faith is a fairy tale for the weak. And the first to burn are our children. The Madonna of Champion shows us the way out. The solution is not grand strategies or spectacular displays. The solution is the same as then, the wooden fence of faith, built day by day. The rosary as a shield, and above all, passing on the faith to the little ones. Like Adele, you too have a mission. You may not need to walk 50 miles through the snow, but you may need to walk across the living room and turn off the TV to pray with your children. You may not have to convince a skeptic, but you may need the courage to make the sign of the cross before a meal in a restaurant. The question this story leaves you with is not whether you want to be a hero, but whether you want to be faithful in the small things entrusted to you. Who are the children God is placing on your path? Your son? Your granddaughter? A colleague asking questions? A friend suffering in silence? In 1871, a material fire stopped before a community united in prayer. Today, the spiritual fire of the world stops wherever it encounters a living faith, guarded and passed on with love. If this story has touched your heart, don't keep it to yourself. Share it. And write in the comments the name of the person to whom you wish to pass on this flame. We will pray together for them. Because the true miracle of Champion is not only that a sanctuary was spared from the flames. The true, incredible miracle is that even today, the Queen of Heaven shows us the way to save souls, by doing our small part with immense love. And she renews for us the same promise given to Adele. Go, do not fear. I will help you.